Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. My name is Tony Rose Deanna and they, them pronouns, a designated hype person here at MCP, and I am joined by a veteran middle and high school teacher, Jocelyn Hieatzman. Welcome, Jocelyn.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Oh, it's so exciting to be in this space with you, and thank you so much for saying yes to the podcast. Before we get started, what is bringing you joy currently?
So the time change. I'm really excited that we're going to have more light in the evening. That's definitely bringing me joy. And I just started teaching Romeo and Juliet today, which is super fun and so ridiculous to put on like these mini performances of scenes with eighth graders, but it's so fun.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I completely agree about the light. It really does take a toll on us when it gets dark at 4 p.m., which is wild, right? So I am also looking forward to that. And then, of course, Romeo and Juliet in eighth grade. That I'm sure you have a lot of stories coming out of.
It's a time. It's a time.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. I do love to start off our podcast with a little bit of joy. And so for our listeners, tell us more about who you are and how you started your MCP journey. You've been on this podcast before, which is really exciting, but that was like light years ago, I feel like. So it's really exciting to just have you, because I believe when we had you, we had another person on that podcast episode as well. And listeners will definitely put that in the show notes so that you don't have to do any Googling or searching for it. But yeah, go ahead, Jocelyn. Just remind us again, if folks have never heard from you, who you are and how you started your MCP journey.
Sure. So I've been teaching for 21 years, and I've been implementing the modern classroom. I want to say this is my 5th year doing it. And the last time I was on here was, like you said, a couple of years ago. And now I am a modern classroom mentor. So I went through that certification, and I'm still working with the same person who like got me into this. Like basically during the pandemic, like my teacher bestie was like, "Hey, Hieatzman, we need to try this thing." I did this course and I was like, well, okay. And it just ended up working really, really well for me and for my students. And I'll never go back.
Yeah, I did a quick Google on when the last time we had you on the podcast. And Jocelyn, that was back in 2021.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. Okay.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Welcome back. And thank you for sharing that. I do sometimes think about, when we call ourselves veteran teachers, right? How many years does it take to be called a veteran teacher, just out of curiosity?
I feel like once you hit 15 years for sure.
Okay.
But maybe even 10. I don't know. People leave our profession quickly, unfortunately.
That is so true. And so our last episode with Jocelyn was about veteran teachers implementing the model, teachers who have been in education for many, many years and still excited about trying different things to continue creating a learning environment for students that are accessible by all, right? And so, you reached out to us, Jocelyn. You were like, "Hey, I have this wonderful thing I want to talk about on the podcast, and I've been on it, and I want to just share all of my experiences and my expertise about this." And I have to agree with you, because a lot of the things that you brought up were also concerns or challenges or questions rather from our community, especially in the Facebook group, right? And so, we've seen some students struggle with receiving their first B in English, right? Because sometimes we're thinking about, students who have gotten A's, right? Like accustomed to having A's because they know the game, they know how to play the game. And some really do know the content, right? But for the most part, we haven't had this conversation yet of students who are advanced, who've gotten A's, but are now getting B's because of a self-paced learning environment, right? So let's talk about it. How do you address this emotional and academic impact of this? Because it is like, how dare you? And then what strategies can educators use to reframe the concept of success beyond traditional letter grades?
It's such a delicate situation. And every year it's felt a little bit different. I almost always, so we have a back to school night, every year, of course. And my teacher bestie and I, we actually combine ours together so the parents get the same message. And we say that it's like, getting a B is mastery, like that's success. And I get a lot of lip service. Parents like, oh yeah, of course. But then when their kid gets a B on an essay or, for a quarter grade, sometimes we have some tricky conversations. And I will say that it's mostly the pressure the kids put on themselves. The idea that I'm the first B they've ever gotten seems to remind me that the way we look at traditional grading is so outdated. And I just don't think it fits at all, because if, like you said, they can play the game and do the things and get the A, but not learn anything, then that's worthless to me. And the modern classroom model, that's what it's all about, is the actual learning and mastery. So it's a multi-pronged approach. Like sometimes I have to just sit with kids. I don't mean to be dramatic, but there was a boy last quarter, I had to pull him in the hallway and sit next to him because he was crying over his B. And I was like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? He's like, my parents will hate me and they'll be disappointed in me. And I'm like, buddy, you're 13 years old. But it's so real to them in the moment. So it's kind of like that relationship that you have with the kids. It's so important. And I think sometimes they have this misconception well, she never gives A's and we have to be perfect. And it's hard sometimes. It's really hard. But it starts with the parents and then with the kids. And then it also means me not inflating grades unnecessarily. So I only grade the stuff that matters. They don't get a grade for the notes or the must do, just for the mastery. And some of them are used to getting a point for, breathing. So it's hard. It's a hard thing to fight against. And in my dream world, all of the English teachers at my school, we all do it. So by the time they get to us, they know the deal. So it's just, I wish I had a script that I could give listeners, be if you say this, they will feel this way. But it's just being really honest, I think, and not discounting their feelings either.
Yeah, I heard a couple of things. I really resonated with your student because coming from an Asian household, my parents had very high expectations of you have to make straight A's, and not just A's. I have to get A plus, right? Our A's and A minuses were not celebrated at home as much as it were when it was A pluses, right? And so really resonate with the fear of being or disappointing parents, right? And so when we think about, the reframing, there, like you said, it's going to be a lot of active listening. It's going to be a lot of space to have conversations about, hey, A doesn't necessarily mean this, right? It doesn't mean that you're better at this than whatever, right? And so I also have heard of comments that you were talking about how this teacher never gives A's, right? And that's also kind of, I don't even know what the word for it. But it's not that it's false or true, right? It's more so hey, you really have to go above and beyond to get an A, right? And like you said, when you grade in a way where it's just looking at the mastery checks of the things that actually matter, there's no way that you're inflating the grades, right? And when you create something that is clear, transparent for students so that they know what it means to master, that also feels really good. It calms our nervous system down, right? And so, like you said, there's really not a script. It is very emotional when you have gotten all A's and all of a sudden you have a B and it's what did I do? Why don't you like me? I know how to do this, but yet you're not giving me the grade that I think I deserve, right? Yeah, so it's great to hear that you provide that space to have conversations about it, because I know I got my first C, right, in college, and that was rough because my advisor didn't tell me I needed a science class, and so I needed to take it in 6 weeks, and it was geology. Who wants to learn about rocks? Not me. And so it was a C, and it was very jarring because that was not the grade that I'm used to. But like I've said before, I've mastered the game. I knew the game. and I couldn't tell you what I learned in school. And so again, thank you just for naming, like, there's not a clear step-by-step way to create this space. It's going to take a lot of listening and a lot of having conversations and a lot of, I think validation is really important. And also understanding that these are systems that have been in place for many, many, many years. So it's going to take a lot for us to reframe our own mindsets as well as all the other stakeholders involved in that student's learning journey, right? Whew.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I think so we have quarters at the place where I work, and we're almost done with we have a couple weeks left in our third quarter. So at this point in the year, I don't have as many conversations like that. Not with the parents, not with the kids, because they've seen how it works and they trust me. And when they do achieve, like, so I have, a rubric that I use consistently. I have something called exceptional, which is actually genuinely exceptional. And when they get that, like, they are so beyond proud because what they did was exceptional. And I think that they are okay with how things go now. And a lot of them, they've gotten to be better writers, so they are mastering things. So with that comes the A that they desire. So it's just hard to get a 13-year-old to trust someone they've never met before. I mean, they hear a lot of things. And like you said, the grades have been around since, school was first created. And I was very much like a school kid. I think most teachers are. And I loved getting grades, and I loved, like, the consistency of it. And, when I got into, like, my professional life, I wasn't always a teacher. There were no more A's, and it was sort of like unmooring. So, things are just not as cut and dry as you get older. So I think that by, even in this tiny, tiny way, giving them just a little bit of time to be like, hey, if I do X, this is not going to make my life Y. Like, maybe it's helping them relax, I hope, in some kind of way.
Yeah, I chuckled because all I could think about was a saying that we say with my family now, my siblings anyway, my brother-in-law. It's like, C's get degrees.
Yeah, C's get degrees. Heck yeah.
So why are we literally stressing ourselves out to get these A's, right? So yeah, anyways. Something else that I'm hearing too is that relationship piece, right? Like you said, especially with teenagers, trust is really hard. It is something that we earn as educators, not just like students just don't say, okay, I trust you. We actually have to consistently show up every single time for them. And they have to know that we are there for them and we do love them and like them and all of that good stuff. And we want them to succeed, right? So this whole relationship piece is really important too. And again, another thing that I'm thinking about too, Jocelyn, is the fact that this is such a different perspective, because I feel like in the podcast and just a lot of conversations that I've had, we've really focused on students who are struggling, students who are behind, right? So it's a lot of like, well, students are not motivated. Students are not, they're putting their heads down. They're not showing up. They're way below grade level. What do I do? Right. And so this conversation is really powerful because then again, right, we don't want to completely ignore the other side as well. Right. And that's what typically happens in our classes anyway, as educators, right? Because we're so focused on the students who need all the help that we just forget about the students who are advanced. So I'm really glad that we're having this conversation now. And this is real, right? This is real because our students who are advanced, they really do want that A. And then for you to create an opportunity for them to be exceptional, like they really have to go beyond, right, what is expected of them so that they can be exceptional. Because I think sometimes, again, it could be skewed, right, based on our energy levels, based on our biases. I can just be like, oh, this kid just is going to get an A for right now.
Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you said that. Like, I think that, like, that's just something that educators do, even if we don't realize it. And it's like, well, they're a nice kid. Like, all kids are nice kids. I mean, but I don't know. It's just the thing that's so great about the modern classroom method, honestly, this goes beyond just like the regular content, but the aspire to do's. Like some of the stuff that the kids have done, I don't know, it's just so amazing. And like, a lot of times, so in my classrooms, we have like a mix of different levels of kids, but like you said, a lot of times the quote unquote, like, I don't know, the doers, like they do all the things you ask them to, like they kind of get forgotten. And I don't want them to be forgotten. But I also don't want them just to like get an A because they're, nice. Because that means nothing.
Yeah. Get an A just because that's what they've been used to doing, right? Not really understanding the concept, but they just understand the game. And so, okay, now this is an interesting question that I have for you, which is a follow-up, right? Of students who, again, we've heard about students who don't want to revise or who are hesitant to revise, but then you have students who are like, no, I'm going to revise until I get an A. Like, I don't care if I've demonstrated proficiency already. I want to redo it so that I can have a perfect score. So how do you balance that desire for perfection with the importance of moving forward? And then what conversations do you have with students about the value of good enough mastery? Because I think sometimes as society, right, like we want to be perfect. And I, as an adult, I'm always constantly telling myself, this is good enough. This is good enough. This is good enough. Like I don't actually have to do more. This is good enough.
Oh man. I think that for me, I just hold so strong from the beginning. Like I never waffle. Like on day one, it's like you can redo anything to get mastery, which is an 80. Like if you get a 75, you can redo it for an 80, but you can't redo it for it to be perfect. So push, keep learning, push yourself to like hit that advanced or proficient to start with. But once I say no enough times, they will stop asking. And like at this age, adolescents, especially middle school students, they will push and push and push until you say yes, because that's worked for them. And they will use, emotional reasons, like things like, well, my parents say I have to get an A. But I just feel like if I just make that just a consistent, like, this is it. And then they don't ask anymore. Like, that's the only thing that's worked for me. It's just been like, you achieve mastery when you get an 80. And if you don't achieve mastery, you get to redo it until you get there. And even if you redo it and you do so much better, I'll tell you, I'll be like, man, if you had done this the first time, this is advanced. So it depends on the kid, but you just have to stick to it. And so that way kids like will try really hard the first time, because like inevitably kids will try to give me some work that is just subpar because they want to see how little they can do. And when they get like a grade that is, slightly terrifying, then they all of a sudden realize, okay, she's actually grading me. She's looking at stuff. So yeah, just you have to stick to your guns. You have to just, say this is what you can do, and that's it.
Yes. And I'm also thinking how exhausting it is to be perfect.
Yeah.
Like, how about we reserve that energy for other tasks moving forward, as opposed to being frustrated that we can't get a perfect score, right? And I think that's also a different conversation that we need to have with students of the perfectionism itself is just so detrimental to our mental health. So we've talked about, how to have these conversations with students, right? Like I made a B or I got a B and oh my gosh, this is awful. And I want to keep redoing. But then you also mentioned that you have non-point based rubrics. Can you tell us a little bit more about that too? And how did your students accept and embrace that? Because I'm sure that was jarring as well.
So I imagine a lot of people listening probably use the LMS Canvas. That's pretty common. And I discovered, honestly, when we first started Modern Classroom 5 years ago, that you can actually add a GPA scale where instead of it saying, A, B, C, D, E, you can change it to descriptors like advanced, exceptional, proficient, developing, revise. So, I mean, I'm happy to like send a tutorial and you can put it in the show notes if you want. But basically what they see is they'll just see the word rather than the point value. Now, unfortunately, like they still have like a numeric grade, but they just see the point value. And I'm an English teacher, so it's very emotional to grade essays, right? Because they put so much work into it. But I really just stick, it's 10 points. Like, that's it. Always 10 points. And a 10 out of 10 is exceptional, a 9 out of 10 is advanced, an 8 out of 10 is proficient, and so on. And that's just what they see. And I don't do that for every mastery check. Like, if they're taking a grammar quiz, like, I don't need to do that for every project and writing assignment. That's what they'll see. And I've definitely had parents call me and be like, what does this mean? And that's a good conversation. And because I use the same rubric always, with those words, it's just something they get used to. I wish that I could convince, our county to not do grades at all. But I did hear that elementary schools are starting to go back to that kind of grading. Like, they're moving away from like the letter grades and they're moving more towards mastery-based grading. But this is going to be, it's going to take a long time. Like, I might not see this like in my career, but I think it's moving in that direction. And Modern Classroom does that. So there's definitely some little technological tricks that I use and to make that. Even though they still really want to know, did I get a 9, an 8, or a 10? It at least gives them one step to not see it. So.
Yeah, I was going to say too, that's a great way to reframe from using numbers to actually to actual words instead of focusing on, a 10, I want to be exceptional, right? And so I really like that shift as well. It's very small and it may be just a tiny bit of like shift, right, for students, but it's still a good way for them to be exposed that it doesn't necessarily have to be tied to a number, everything that they do. So thank you for sharing that. And, you mentioned a little bit about some pushback, right? Resistance. Can you tell us a little bit about, what are the pushbacks that you've gotten? I'm sure you've gotten a lot from parents, from families, from stakeholders, right? And then how did you refine your practice based on the student and community feedback? Because I think, again, right, as teachers, we often get, I don't want to say scared, but we often are like, people are saying this thing about me, so I want to go back to what it was before so that then people won't judge what I'm doing, right? Or critique what I'm doing. So all right, let me say this in other words, right? So like, what are some pushback and resistance that you've gotten? And then how did you utilize those feedback and to refine your practices?
So when I've gotten pushback from parents, most of it is just them wanting to understand, not criticize. And I think that is an advantage to being a veteran teacher, somebody who's been at their school for a period of time, and also having a partner teacher who does the same thing. And I know that's not everybody's situation, but sometimes it's just continuing to do those things and not giving up. And I think that takes bravery and fortitude to not go back to how we used to be, because there have been times where I'm like, oh man, I really miss where the kids would just fill in the blanks of note sheets and I would just give them a lecture. And I mean, that was not good teaching. And of course I know that, but I mean, those are things that kids and parents understand. So I think that for people who are struggling with the pushback, like, you have to have a really solid practice yourself. And it's just, you just follow the pattern. Video notes, must do, mastery check, aspire to do. And I mean, I know I said this in my first podcast with you, but I have ADHD. And part of the reason why this model made sense to me is because it's just so clear, because I get lost in things. I mean, I really do. It's really hard. And I get like sucked into things that don't matter. And I stay at work late and do things that are, just so pointless. But having that structure that you can tell anybody, it's like, well, this is how it goes. I mean, I have an elevator pitch for how the modern classroom works that has gotten shorter and shorter and shorter just because I've done it more. So a lot of times parents, and I kind of hate to say this, but teachers, sometimes we need to put on a little show to impress stakeholders, to prove our value, which, as we know, is incredible. But sometimes, like, you have to be like, this is how long I've been doing this. This is the success. This is where I can direct you. Like in my first, opening, getting to know you lessons at the beginning of the year, I mean, I have pages that link right to the Modern Classroom website. I mean, when I present it at back to school night, like I use all of the same, language that you all use. So that helps. It's just, that really helps. And sometimes if you get nervous or scared, like just like the research backs it, like just say the things that you do. And most of the time people, how can they say that it's wrong? Like when you present it that way, like it's really, really hard for somebody to say, well, why don't you just do this thing that you did before? So that has been really helpful. And I think that teachers are so brave and can control a class and engage a class so well, but sometimes we get scared when it's administrators and parents. But it's the same. It's the same. It's like, here are the things, this is how it works, and it works. And sometimes that's like full stop. So that's how I deal with criticisms and pushback, is like, I know that it works. I know how it works. I know it helps me and I know it helps kids. And I'm getting to the point now, because this is my 5th year implementing it, where I'm starting to teach siblings of kids I did those first years. And they know how it works. So again, I wish for those of you that are, trying this model for the first time, that I could say that you won't get pushback, but just be strong. Like it works, and it will make your life, especially if you are neurodivergent like me, it will make your life so much easier and better. And that's worth it on its own.
Yeah, I was going to say, welcome to the Neurodivergent Club, y'all.
Yeah, right.
Because it really does help educators and not just students. And I love that you pointed out too that when caregivers and stakeholders and families and parents come with concerns, right, it's not necessarily it's not a critique. It's more of I want to understand this piece. And when there are negative feelings behind that person because of the model, then it's because they don't understand, right? There's this fear of like, I don't understand how to do this and I don't know how to support my student. Therefore, I want to have conversations with you. And so really shifting that mindset too. And of course, from someone who's been in education for over 20 years, you kind of have this in the back pocket, right? Of like, people are going to come with concerns and that's okay, right? And it seems like you also have a community. So you have your partner teacher as a thought partner, which I absolutely love, because then there's an alignment, right, of what you two are doing. And then it's just so much more fun when you're doing it with someone else. And then you all can, compare and contrast data, think about what can you do to make it a little bit better the following year. And you also said that lecturing is what's considered good teaching, right? Because that is what we've been doing over and over and over and over again. And it is also comfortable. We already know it. That's how we were taught. We say it works, but really it doesn't. And sometimes too, again, based on our level, our energy levels, right? Sometimes we do just want to lecture and not have to worry about any of those things. But I think what I love about this model is that you can have those like whole class discussions if you wanted. You can still do a mini lesson in front of the whole class. So I really love that part. And you also said something about a solid foundation. I am all about having a solid foundation when it comes to implementing the model. And also understanding that like, it's not going to be perfect, y'all. You may have a solid foundation or solid understanding of what blended self-paced mastery-based learning could look like and sound like and feel like in your classroom, but also know that you have 20 plus students in your class who's going to turn up and who's going to just like do all the things that we're not really prepared for. We think we are, but we're not. They show up how they want to show up. And so give yourself lots of grace. You can have the solid foundation, you can have the solid knowledge, and also understanding that, hey, this is a community learning space. So let's talk about what can we do to make this better for everyone. So if this thing is not working, what can we do to make sure that it does work, right? So we're not saying that you need to have a solid foundation and then close it off and say like, no, I'm not taking any, feedback. It's more like you want to have a solid foundation and also, right, open and invite for others to provide feedback whenever necessary. So I really appreciated that part.
Hey there, listeners. This is Zach. I've got some announcements and reminders for you. Calling all school and district leaders. We're hosting a virtual summer summit on June 24th for leaders supporting Modern Classrooms educators. Leaders will learn practical skills from fellow leaders, attend workshops of their choice, and connect with the Modern Classrooms Project Leadership Collaborative Community. Modern Classrooms co-founder Rob Barnett is our featured keynote speaker and will share insights from his book, Meet Every Learner's Needs, alongside voices of students, educators, and leaders. We invite educators to share the summit with their leaders and invite leaders to register. Want to start building your own modern classroom? Sign up for our summer Virtual Mentorship Program from either May 19th to June 22nd or June 23rd to July 27th. Work with one of our expert educators to build materials for your own classroom. We have scholarships all over the country, so you can enroll for free if you teach in LA, Oakland, Chicago, Minnesota, Alabama, and more. To see if there's an opportunity for you, check out modernclassrooms.org/apply-now. That's modernclassrooms.org/apply-now. Looking for virtual connection? Join our Implementer Meetup on Wednesday, May 14th at 7 p.m. Eastern to connect with other Modern Classrooms educators. Registration links will be in the show notes. And with that, let's get on back into it with TR and Jocelyn.
You know, we were talking about, again, like just pushback, right? And can you believe that COVID has been almost 5 years now? That is wild to me. And yet you said that students are still saying this way of learning reminds me of COVID distance learning, right? And we've heard that from other people as well who really don't know the model that well. So what is triggering this association, do you think? What is it? What is this triggering? And then also, how can educators differentiate between necessary adaptations and then potentially negative parallels to the challenging period, right? Because again, this is something to get used to, right? COVID was a lot of sitting and staring at screens, not really a lot of engagement. Tell us your thoughts.
So I will say those conversations kind of ebb and flow, just depending on the year or the group of kids. I definitely get that sort of feeling. COVID was, it was a national tragedy on so many different levels. And, we all did the best that we could, with what we had. And I do think that, when they see that they have to watch a video and then do work on it, I think that it's really important that when you're making your videos, and I have remade my videos over the past few years because we started this in COVID. It was just coincidental. My partner teacher and I, we were ready to start a normal year and we were going to do this anyway. And it worked so well for COVID. But you have to really put yourself in your videos. My original videos, it was my voice, but my face wasn't there. That makes a huge difference. And I've really made an effort to cut the videos down wherever I can. I think that's really helped a lot. And it also, again, it's that trust. It's sort of when my kids come in, they have a do now that they start with. And then we kind of meet and I walk around, see how they are. And then I'll talk about the week and things like that. So you still can have your normal classroom routines. The entire class doesn't need to be they're looking at the video content and they're in silence doing stuff. The must-dos they can collaborate on. So it's just really being very intentional about making sure they can talk to each other and kind of forcing it sometimes. But delivering content in videos is amazing because if a kid misses school, they can still learn. If a kid is not ready to learn that day because something sad happened, they can look at it later. And if I'm just lecturing a group of kids day in and day out, there's no way I have all their attention. So again, it's just making them as personal as you can, as short as you can, within reason, and then making sure that they do have chances to talk to each other. And I also think it's really important to not dismiss their concerns, because I think the year after we got back from COVID, and I would hear that because it was so fresh on them, I would get kind of grumpy about it and be like, you have no idea how much work I put into this. And, it was very me, egocentric. But I think that now I'm way more patient with that. And I'm just I sit with them, I'm like, tell me more about that. Why does it make you feel this way? And a lot of times kids have never had an adult talk to them that way, like as like we're having a conversation. So that usually makes a big difference. And like once they kind of go through the machinations, like they end up being like, okay, well, it's really not exactly that way. Maybe I just wanted to complain because it's different.
It's that piece, right? It's different. So I want to complain, and I am a teenager, so I'm going to complain about everything I can complain about, especially if you give me space and time to complain. So that piece definitely. And I think something that's coming up for me is the collaboration piece. It's really important for our students to collaborate with each other. And because COVID happened, there's a lot of social emotional learning skills that our students don't have. And so we need to provide guidelines of how to collaborate with each other as well, because we can't just say like, oh, they should just be able to talk to each other. That's just not how it works. It's not the reality anymore, right? So it has to be intentional. There has to be some guidelines. And as a neurodivergent, I love some guidelines and some sentence stems, okay? Like if I don't got to think about what I have to say, beautiful, I can show up, and then I won't overthink about like, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that, or how did I start, how do I start this conversation? So definitely force collaboration, and make sure that when you are forcing collaboration, that there are guidelines for students to be able to feel like they succeeded in the collaborative task that you have for them. And another thing that I was thinking too, it's really interesting with students because there's such a disconnect with the instructional videos, but then they're on Snapchat, they're on TikTok, they're on YouTube Shorts, right? They're on like all of the Twitch. It's all really video. Like you want to go and replay whatever video of someone who's streaming on Roblox to kind of understand like what moves I need to do, right? And I feel like that, to me, that's just so interesting that there's that disconnect. It's like, no, you actually do it all the time. You learn from videos all the time. And I think you pushing, the whole be personal, right? Like be personable, be yourself, honestly, make it engaging, and make it short. Because again, we are not fighting, but we are like going against TikTok and all of these short form videos. And so we want to be straight to the point as well, right? So I really, that's just so funny to me that that's how kids work and how their brains work. And so, okay, you are sharing with us this Unit 2, Lesson 2, and, listeners will have that in the show notes as well. And it's a lot of good information. Actually, you have slides on there, you have tasks on there. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So it relates to the rhetorical appeals, ethos, pathos, and logos. And it comes in the middle of a unit where they will eventually be analyzing speeches, writing their own, performing it. So that foundational work with the appeals and then also rhetorical devices, it's huge and it's new to them. So they need to get that content over and over and over again. And one of the things that I love about these lessons is that I pulled in clips from movies and Super Bowl commercials and, other stuff. It's not just me going through a slideshow and being like, here you go. But it was really, I did it not that long ago. I just keep refining that lesson. But I remember when the kids were doing the must-do, like they were gathered around watching the Super Bowl commercials and talking to each other because it was interesting and kind of cool. And it's such a fun unit to teach because I eventually, I was like, all right, it's the Super Bowl this year. Tell me some commercials, give me some devices and some appeals. And it was just such an engaging thing to do. And that's kind of a way where they can learn digitally and with videos that I don't even think they realized, that it was the same thing that we always do. It was like, oh, it was so cool, Ms. Hieatzman. I was like, okay, yeah, it's amazing. But yeah, it's if I can incorporate, YouTube clips and multimedia stuff, I absolutely will. So I definitely enjoy teaching that lesson. And it gives you so much room to also do things together. I do some stuff that's old school. I have a pile of magazines and at their tables for a warm up, I'll be like, hey, let's go through these magazines and see what appeals are in here and why. And, it's not like doing Modern Classroom makes you stop being a teacher. It just changes the way you deliver content and it gives you a framework of, how that works. So, I think that lesson is, just really fun because you can do so much with it. And I did want to just really touch quickly on, how to get kids to collaborate. So I'm very much a believer in setting kids in tables. And I know that that is sometimes kind of challenging for people, for teachers, because their attention is not on you. But their attention is never fully on you. So when they're in groups together, it makes it easier. And honestly, not all kids have friends in the classroom. And it's a relief to be told where to sit, what to say, and how to say it. And maybe that's not every day, everything, but I think that it's just something that fits so well with the modern classroom model. And it's a way to be like, okay, we watched this video, but now I'm going to get with my friend, or I'm going to get with my table partner, and we're going to do this activity. So it's still, it's totally different, but it's still the same. Like all the things that people do as good teachers, you're still doing them.
Yeah. And I was going to say too, with the collaboration piece, right? If you are changing your seating chart every day or every week, instead of taking class time to do that, what I did was I would have the seating chart already as they were walking in. So they knew, okay, this is where I sit. So it's not, oh, we're going to wait until everyone is in, and now I'm going to move every single student to where they're supposed to be. No, the seating chart is already on the board. That's the first thing you're looking at when you come into the classroom. So you know exactly where to go. That's just a time-saving piece as well for educators who may not have known or forgot about this technique as well. And especially for our teachers who are brand new to teaching too, right? I'm sure you've heard of that technique as well, but again, just as a reminder. So really providing, again, like you said, access points for students to have conversations with others is really, really important, y'all. When we're thinking about inclusivity, when we're thinking about accessibility, right? We want to lower the nervous system down so that they can focus on the task ahead of them or in front of them, right? So they can say, oh, okay, I have to work with a group, but here are the expectations. So then I know how to move and how to navigate and how to have conversations and what I need to have conversations about. So as adults, we love clarity. We love when things are clear. So we want to continue providing that kind of space for students to be in as well, right? Another thing that I wanted to talk about too, Jocelyn, was you mentioned pop culture. Pop culture is so important because that is what our students are seeing outside of our classrooms. So highly recommend listening to your students about what they're watching, about what they're doing, about what they're playing, so then you can incorporate those things in your lessons. Now, mind you, you don't necessarily have to re-record a video because pop culture changes every year, right? But you could, for example, if you teach English, you could do a video on theme, and then the supplemental task or the practices are the pop culture references, so that so that students know you're paying attention. First of all, you know what is important to them, right? And you are kind of in the know of what students are interested in. So I love that. It's the real life example, right? And like you've been in the classroom again for over 20 years. So I'm sure things have changed over and over and over again. And I love too that you brought up magazines, because I'm sure some of our students are like, magazines, what are those?
Yeah.
So bringing back some of those nostalgic things that we used to do as educators is also really cool. Like you don't actually have to do all 2025 stuff. You can bring in magazines, you can bring in CDs, you can bring in DVDs if you wanted, right? Like floppy disk, all of these things. Cause like this generation is still alive to talk about all of those things that have already passed on that like our students have no idea what they are. It's wild. Well, thank you for sharing that Unit 2, Lesson 2 with us. I know that our listeners are going to be able to just visualize and at least see, or understand, have a little bit of an understanding of what your lessons look like in your class. And so again, I appreciate you doing that. And now, Jocelyn, what do you hope to see in the future and what goals do you have?
I guess in my professional future, I want to just keep trying new things, and I don't want to give up doing new things because it's easy. I think a lot of people, when they've hit the year mark that I'm at, they stop making changes. And I don't think it means that they're bad teachers or bad people. I think that we get used to doing things. And so even if it's just changing a few things here and there every year, it makes a difference, and it's invigorating to me. So I just want to continue to make changes and refine my practice. And I hope that more people will like take on this model in my school and beyond. I mean, I have been talking about it for so long, but I hear the struggles of some educators, and I wish that I had known about this when I was a newer teacher. I don't think I could have implemented it completely my first couple years of teaching, but I think if I had had somebody to guide me through it, you know, I think that it would have been amazing. So I hope that more people, you know, are into this. And I don't know. I just kids are always going to be kids. I like to say teenagers are going to teenage, and I hope that they never stop talking to me. Like things have come full circle. So like I have this group of I'm kind of a weirdo, and I have this group of little weird girls, and they are so obsessed with the fact that like I saw Radiohead in the 90s, and like I, you know all this stuff about music, and I have tattoos and blah blah blah, and it's just like I was like, did I become cool again? Like what happens? So, but I mean, you know, I just hope that I can still connect with students even as my career is, you know, in its last third.
Okay, two things, right? This is a thing that another thing that I have in my head all the time is that when we're comfortable, we're actually not growing. Our brains are not getting that exercise that we need when we are just comfortable. We want to feel uncomfortable sometimes, not all the time, maybe majority of the time, because then we know that that's when we have some learning gaps and maybe a learning curve that we need to figure out, right? So that's one. And then another thing is that I miss students so much, Jocelyn, because they keep you young, right? Like you said, oh, am I cool again? And I mean, there's this whole trend now, and I only know because my sister's Gen Z, that there's a desire for the old school stuff, right?
Yes.
Like our fashion is coming back. I don't know why, you know, and just like different things from our generations coming back. And I think our young people are just really interested in what our lives were. And they want to, I don't want to say copy it, but they do want to see how that goes, right? Or see how that was for us. They're more curious, I think, which I really love. So thank you for sharing your goals. Thank you for just saying, you know what, I've been in this profession for so many years, but I keep at it because I am open to changing. I am open to playing around, exploring, and doing all the different things. So thank you for your service. I hope you get that. I hope you get that enough, you know, lots of thanks, lots of love, because being an educator is really hard, really hard.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely hard, but I mean, there's so much good that comes from it. And I don't know. I just, I'm really grateful for Modern Classroom. And like, that's why I wanted to come back and just be like, here I am, it's later and I'm still doing it and I'm better. And, you know, it's great.
And Jocelyn, you also have another perspective of implementing this model for 5 years and now having siblings. Like that's a whole other conversation that we could have. So I'll definitely keep you posted because I would love to hear that. Because again, right, we hear a lot from like 2-year implementers, 3-year implementers, first-year implementers, no implementing, right? But then now to hear that like, no, I have siblings and it's actually really cool. I feel like you and Zach, our other co-host, would have a great conversation about like what you've seen throughout the years. So, okay, well, Jocelyn, how can our listeners connect with you?
I mean, I gotta be honest, talking of old school, like I kind of quit all my social media, just for like my own mental health. So
Good for
you can email me, like that's totally fine. But yeah, I went dark.
I love that. I'm so jealous. I'm going to do that one day. I'm going to do that one day. Soon it's going to happen.
I don't know. I go through phases, but that's where I am right now.
Yeah.
And,
understandable.
I don't know. I feel a little bit better about everything.
Good for you. Good for you. I aspire again. And I also understand like the nuance with social media, right? Like that's where a lot of my community is. And that's where a lot of the events are popping up. And if without social media, I would have never known of all of these other opportunities. So it's kind of like a love-hate relationship here. But listeners, we will put Jocelyn's email in the show notes, so no worries about trying to find that as well. And again, Jocelyn, second time around, just as beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing your experience and expertise with us. I really, really, really appreciate it.
No problem. I love talking to you.
Listeners, remember you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's video uploaded on Modern Classroom's YouTube channel and transcript uploaded by Friday, so be sure to check back to access those. Also, we are asking our listeners to leave a review if this podcast has been helpful in supporting you to create a human-centered learning environment through a blended, self-paced, and mastery-based model. It does help other folks find it. Thank you all for listening. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday.
Thank you so much for listening. You can find links to topics and tools we discussed in our show notes for this episode. And remember, you can learn more about our work at www.modernclassrooms.org, and you can learn the essentials of our model through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. You can follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Modern Class Proj, that's Proj. We are so appreciative of all you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.